What kind of level of algae are you comfortable with living with? Let me know. What fish should we put in here? Quite significantly infected with that Blackbeard algae or blackbrush algae. Still decided what to scape this with. Hi everyone, George here, and I'm going away for a few days, so I thought I'd give you a quick update of the gallery. Been quite a lot of significant changes. We've moved the cichlid tank from next to my desk to here. Some real kind of cool updates to give you, I think, on the scapes themselves. Let's start off with the Highline 60. Do check out the complete step-by-step video that I released a few days ago. I have changed the scape slightly. I've removed a lot of the trident fern that was blocking up uploaded with this beautiful wood. I wanted to show off this wood a bit more because it is so gorgeous. And I did talk about this wood in some detail in the last video because it has been known to cause some issues with some new setups. So do consider soaking it for months and doing your water changes before using this Millennium wood, it's known as. I've been set up for a few days, lots of growth already. The inline CE2 obviously doing its trick, and then the Chihiros LED lights, the WRGB2 Pro, obviously very bright and doing a great job there. That's on 100% for 5 hours now. And then we've got the light ground as well, this back LED panel, which I think looks beautiful. So this is going to be growing in for a few weeks or so, and then we'll do a new layout, and that's the idea behind this Highline 60, is to continually churn out new layouts. One of my favourite things about this scape is actually how it fits into the living space, and in particular we've kind of reflected the artwork here with the wood here. And there has been some observations from folk that think this wood looks a little bit like the Loch Ness Monster with the head popping out, which I actually agree with. So I think it looks quite cool, doesn't it? But yeah, lovely system. Shout out to Awaze, of course, for supporting the channel, supporting the gallery with these beautiful aquariums. Still decided what to scape this with. Should we just keep that hardscape and plant it up? Maybe terrestrial plants only, make it into a terrarium perhaps, so almost maintenance free. Or maybe a shrimp tank. Okay, let's move on over to the kind of showpiece, if you like, of the gallery at the moment. This is the Awaze Highline 400, and it's getting to that point where everything is growing in really well and kind of accelerating in its maturity. It's just sort of suddenly taken off. Some beautiful colours now coming in from the Ludwigia, the Hygrophila tiger, which was kindly donated by my good friend Ty Streetman. Many of you may know Ty, been on the channel a few times now. Was home to discus, did talk about those in a previous video and the complete story about why I rehomed them. We are in the market for some new fish. At the moment, we only have the 6 lemon tetras. So what do you think? I know I asked this question on a lot of my videos, but genuinely, let me know what fish should we put in here, because I think it is now time to do this scape more justice and give it some beautiful display fish. So let me know what you think. I'm wondering, so there's 2 main things. I'm just going to take a seat down here on my stall. There's 2 kind of main ways of thinking. Do we stock a large shoal of small fish and have like just an impactful, coherent kind of moving shoal, like I don't know, 100 Harlequin rasboras or something like that, because we've got the black background, we've got the orangey yellow kind of hues of the dragonstone and the stem plants. So I think the contrast of that black and orange, little tiny triangles swimming up and down the scape with the black background would look really great. So that's kind of number 1. There's a couple of different species. We could go for like the Espies, which have a very distinct sort of lamb chop shape, and they're a bit more slender than the regular Harlequins. They're a bit harder to get hold of, but I think they shoal a bit nicer as well, so maybe that's an option. The other option is to go for something bigger and have smaller numbers. So I did actually see some diss-only barbs yesterday, some Redline Torpedo barbs in my local shop in Maidenhead Aquatics at Huntingdon. So these can get quite big. They can get 6 inch plus. But if I had, say, 6 or 8 of them, and they shoal quite nicely, and they're a slender fish, quite active, and I think they would look quite nice. So 2 very distinct differences there, basically in the difference in size. But I've always had a fascination with the Redline Torpedo Barbs. I've always wanted to keep them. I've never actually kept them before. But is that a reason to keep them, you know? A couple of options there. The other thing is we can go for more of a community vibe. So we can stock several species and have smaller numbers. So for instance, we've now got the 6 lemon tetras in there. We could get some other tetras, maybe a dozen or so neon tetras, maybe some serpe tetras, and just sort of mix the colours, mix the swimming kind of behaviours, maybe have some for more upper level swimming and then maybe some for a kind of lower level. So lots of different options there for stocking our fish. The water is quite hard, so I wouldn't want to stock any kind of sensitive fish that really love the soft water. I did think of chocolate gouramis. I love chocolate gouramis and I think they'd look absolutely beautiful in here. But I'm just a bit reluctant. I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think they prefer softer water. Talk you through the filtration, no surprises. Aquascapers Biomaster 850s. These are the biggest filters that we do. Aquascapers, the 850 thermos, inline CO2 there, you can see. So lots of filtration, lots of good flow, circulation to get that CO2 circulating all the way around the aquarium to feed those plants really well. You can see, if I go up closely to the tank, you can probably see the white specks. That's actually CO2 bubbles. And they're physically going to be hitting those plant leaves and feeding the plants that way. The right hand side of the cabinet is mainly just maintenance kit, loads of towels, a bit of a mess, but there we go. So I wanted to talk to you about algae, in fact, in this video. So I'm going to get some close-ups of some Blackbeard algae. So I think you'll agree that the scope looks quite impressive from a distance, but as we get closer, you might be able to see some algae forming on the rocks, the dragonstone and especially the Bucophalandra leaves. So let's have a look at these now. So I'm curious to ask you guys, what do you think to this algae? It's a lot of people's nemesis. A lot of people will, you know, really have a hard time dealing with it. There's lots of different kind of ideas behind what causes it. I don't think there's normally any one particular attribute. I think it's normally a combination of things. I've got it in here, and it's quite severe on some of these leaves, isn't it? Look at these. This is Bucophalandra kedigang, quite significantly infected with that Blackbeard algae or blackbrush algae. But when you view it from a distance, it doesn't look too bad. So my question is to myself and to you guys, what kind of level of algae are you comfortable with living with? And, you know, do we spend maybe too much time and energy as aquascapers focusing on having an algae-free tank at the detriment to our enjoyment of the hobby, where perhaps we could maybe let that algae go, as long as it's not getting significantly worse and spoiling our enjoyment of the aquascape as a whole, then is the algae doing any harm? I don't think it's doing any harm from a health perspective on the aquarium. You could argue it's actually a good thing for the aquarium because it's showing a natural process. The algae itself, as it grows, is using up nutrients, and it's producing oxygen. It's photosynthesizing, just like regular plants. And you said real plants then. So my kind of thought, as I get kind of let things go a bit easier in my old age, I'm quite happy to see a little bit of blackbrush algae. Call me lazy, but it doesn't spoil my enjoyment of the aquascape. I know it's there, and that's okay. It's a natural part of the process. As long as it doesn't get significantly worse too quickly, then I'm happy to live with it, I think. Some people aren't. Some people would rather regularly dose a chemical like Chem Flourish XL. Potentially there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you want a complete pristine algae-free tank and you're happy to add a chemical to achieve that, there's no judgment here. But I wonder if adding a chemical is actually in the best interests of the living entities that we're keeping, and maybe we should consider what we're putting into the aquarium, and is it actually necessary for the health of the aquarium, or is it more necessarily healthy for our aesthetic sensibility? So have a quick look at the cichlid tank before we go. Looking really good. I think they want to be fed again. Okay, take care, keep on scaping. Cheerio.